Today we have Alex here from Butter, and he is gonna talk to us about how we can improve DAO governance and what his learnings are. So welcome, Alex. Thank you.
I need my notes. I think it works this way. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex from Butter. So we'll be talking about Saving Private Uni. So for those of you who know Saving Private Ryan with Tom Hanks, why Uni? So really, we'll talk a lot about Uniswap as the interesting example of a DAO that governs a protocol. And we'll talk about this protocol as producing crypto goods. So this is going to be a bit of like more a talk for governance nerds. So I hope some of you are. And what will happen with Uni, and of course we'll talk about the fee switch. First, some words about Butter. So I'm half of Butter. We are two of us working on producing a protocol for DAO governance, basically. And some of what we did in the past is mainly, so now nearly 3 months ago, we started an incentivized delegate campaign at Aave. So that's really like an election to elect a delegate at Aave, and this delegate is still compensated actually until 17th of this month. And so that's token logic related to Llama, for those who know. Yeah, so we organized this as an experiment and to learn more about the market. We were focusing on reducing capture. So the idea is to make sure that whales are counteracted by smaller holders. So we want to create the conditions for smaller holders to be able to have a voice in governance, a real one. So this kind of stuff are related to decisiveness in a vote, which is extremely hard to get because usually when you have just one vote, nothing happens. These kind of problems. So we are focusing on that, but now we are kind of taking a bit of a step back and trying to look at in which cases are DAOs really relevant on the longer term, because we are making a huge bet on working on DAOs. So which DAOs are we talking about? So we'll take a look at this, which DAOs, which kind of problems, and so we'll go into this crypto goods concept, let's say. So let's say our question is, where are DAOs heading? I don't know if some of you can read. So the first two lines are coming from the signature of a guy who is called Revalin on bitcointalk.org. So I'm going to read them. War is God's way of teaching Americans geography. So it's about American Civil War. And the second one, it's courtesy of him, of this guy. Bitcoin is the devil's way of teaching geeks economics. It rings bells to me. It makes sense. But yeah, what I'm saying is just DAOs are geeks' way of teaching themselves public economics. What I mean by public economics is typically like economics of public goods. And really, I'm saying this because I'm more a geek than an economist. So bear with me. Some of these things I'm going to talk about are really explorations rather than formal proofs, like as an economist could do. Yeah. All right. So let's get into it. What are DAOs good for? So of course, we want to start with this question that's already addressed in a lot of ways. We want to focus on one point, which is what we'll call concave goods. So for those who read this article, there are a couple of articles by Vitalik on DAOs and concave versus convex decisions. So basically the idea is starting rather on the right. So convex is like a startup. You want to take big decisions fast. So it's autocratic, or it can be also in case of a dictature. So you have outcome is highest when there is only one option which is chosen. You can think of a pivot, for example, these kind of things in startups. Whereas concave decisions are those where the outcome, so that's the left side, the outcome is better when the policy is chosen in between. So it's like, so it's not radical. It's, sorry, I missed the constraint of radical. So yeah, it's a middle point. And so this is democracies, DAOs to some extent. So yeah, Vitalik's point, I think is making it well, is that DAOs are mostly useful as a new form of organization when because they can handle this type of decisions. And we're talking about concave goods, so which is just goods which are produced by DAOs which allow concave decisions. So, so now I'm going into the goods thing. So I hope this is not very controversial. So a DAO governs a protocol which produces a good, and so as a DAO can produce concave decisions, it can produce then what we call a concave good. So that's just a good which is governed via a concave decision process. So that's going to be something which is more democratic than a regular corporation, basically. I'll try now to go back to the example of Uni and some of the other examples that you know about. So let's take Uniswap, or rather, let's take maybe Ethereum first. So actually, I'll go back just for a sec. So we could say that there's a kind of a proto DAO in Ethereum. It governs the protocol Ethereum, and so the EF is there on top. Part of some other organizations which are Infinite, which are in the end governing the protocol, and it produces block space, F, and smart contracts execution, basically. And a DAO like Uniswap, so the Uniswap DAO governs the Uniswap, the protocol, which produces liquidity. So it's readily available money to swap with on a constant curve. So we could say liquidity. Yeah, now I want to look into, so this is kind of a setting of how things look like. And Uniswap right now is in a phase where it's still doing a lot of technical development. So it sounds like more like a startup, but the questions are arising already of like, should the fee switch be killed? So basically I'm saying, I'm suggesting that Uniswap is in kind of a transition phase. So I'm using progressive decentralization, which is a meme which we can use in this case, but I want to be more specific. So let's take Ethereum, for example. At the very start of the project, it was a small core team. It was funded by 2 of these members, I think, if I remember well. And now it is more of a like distributed teams, a lot of like this. They are trying to have a decision process which is distributed or decentralized. So projects naturally start like startups and then evolve. This evolution is necessary if you want to reach a state where you can make concave decisions. So if you stay autocratic, you will never get concave decisions. So you will never get middle points. You will never have a decision process which looks like a form of democracy where all users are basically expressing their voice. And for Uni, it's the same. Like until now, it has been funded by VCs, as you know, so A16Z. And it's reaching a point where we think it's interesting to ask the question, is it going to move to another phase, basically? So is it going to change the way it's governing the protocol? So is the protocol going to move to something which is more like, less like startup tech development, so take a lot of choice of technical decisions, build product, but rather what I'm trying to call here operation, which is there is technical technology and you operate it so that it's maximally legitimate for the stakeholders, for all the users of Uniswap. And of course, this raises the question of the fee switch. Is the fee switch considered legitimate by users? Wouldn't they rather switch to a protocol which doesn't have a fee switch? So vote with their feet, go away from Uniswap and go to another protocol. So that's a kind of question we're asking. Yeah, so I'll go in more detail. I hope this is not too dry, and we'll take some more concrete examples later. Yeah, so what is Uniswap? It's not a public good, so I'm not going to fix the public goods funding problem, but we hope to give an answer to what we call crypto utilities and their funding. And so what is a crypto utility? So utility is in the sense of electricity. So electricity providers are usually there is one per country usually. So it's essential goods and services, electricity, water, this kind of stuff. And so a couple of economics facts about them. Usually these providers are rather going to be monopolistic because it's much more efficient for society to have a single provider rather than multiple ones. So because of high fixed costs, economies of scale. But of course there is the risk of capture, of exploitation. And so usually, so in the Web2 world, we could say the state is having coercive power and can enforce some rules on that. That's definitely where DAOs are going to shine, right? Because they are going to be able to govern protocols in a way that implements some mechanisms, some designs which are going to protect the protocol from being excessively extracted by some of the token holders. Uniswap typically is also a network good. So the more users you have, the more utility you have. So that's a bit like Facebook. It's if there is more liquidity, you have less slippage. So you are better off if the more users you have. So that's even a reinforcing argument in the case of Uniswap. And so now we are getting into the question of the fee. So if the fee gets implemented, utility is going to be reduced because they are going to be priced out users. So this shows, I think, rather unequivocally that if you don't have a fee, you have more users, you have more utility for everyone. Also, just a quick thing on public goods. Don't read anything. Just like public goods are the ideal state where we want to be in, which is there, and which is that the good is non-rivalrous and non-excludable, and that's the second point. It's not excludable, which is basically not really possible to achieve because Uniswap is always going to have a fee, even if it's not a fee which is extracted by token holders, right? So for those who know, so when you swap on Uniswap, there are fees which are returned to LPs, and then there is the fee with a big F, which is a fee which plan is to be distributed to the Uni token holders. And so I'm saying we could get closer to a public good, not there though, if there is no such thing as the big fee. This is what we're talking about. Yeah, so we want to get closer to there. And we'll see also why that makes sense in not just in a moral or ethical way, but really in an economics on an economic standpoint. And so yeah, we look into funding. Yeah, so let's now take a look again at Uni. So Uniswap has been funded by A16Z. The VCs have now a stake in the Uni token. This is considered we think like as mostly like most people consider that A16Z is using this token as a way to someday activate the fee so that they can get a return on the investment, right? So that's the kind of basic like equity-like, that's what I call equity-like. At some point you can get dividends of your token. That's token governance, I wrote there. So okay, this one is obvious. And I'm positing that this system, this mechanism is a blocker for Uniswap to reach a monopoly. And really, so why that? Because as long as you have the threat of the fee, there are users which means users might be priced out by the relationship I gave before, which is that if you don't have all the users, you don't have the maximum liquidity and you don't have maximum utility. So you can't have both token, you can't have a fee and reach monopoly. Users get priced out. So that means that Uniswap is not reaching its full potential, basically, as long as the fee is there. So that's where we get to the question of like, how is Uni going to, the Uni token, how is it going to survive if the future of Uniswap is that there is no fee? So on that, actually there are a lot of theories, like some people have written about that. Some are saying that the threat of the fee should stay there because that's the way Uni as a token has value. So I think it's not, basically I don't think it's a great argument. We could get to what really VC need is exit liquidity at some point, right? We don't necessarily need to activate the fee, but definitely Uni is going to reach its highest potential, which is being a monopoly, only if the fee is destroyed. So we have to find a way out of the fee, basically. And to support this, we are basically that's basically the thesis of this talk, that there is a value in governance rights, even without the fee switch. So let me explain there. So what I represent on the below is share of liquidity. So you could imagine right now we are somewhere there, and we are saying that governance rights as a whole, their value is going to be maximal when liquidity, the share of liquidity is going to be 100%, so monopoly. And so the reasoning is that as long as the Uniswap is not in a monopoly status, users, or I could say all stakeholders, but users can vote with their feet and go to a competing protocol. Whereas when Uniswap is at monopoly, they can't move away from the protocol. So anything that is any governance that they might, any governance right that they might want to enable on the protocol to basically defend their position, make the protocol move so adjust the parameters in the sense that make most sense for them. There is no other way when at monopoly to use these governance rights, because it's a monopoly. So it's as if you say, okay, I'm not happy with the electricity provider, but you can't go anywhere else, or you have to move, change country, basically. So it's the same here. If you can't get away from Uniswap, then all what's left to you, if you want to have an influence on Uniswap, is to use governance rights. So the governance rights are going to have their full value only when at monopoly, because before monopoly there is the vote with your feet. There are forks which are possible. So that's the reason why you could have a sushi swap be created. But but if the monopoly is there, if all the liquidity is there, it's going to be very, very expensive to perform any such. So the cost of switching is going to be extremely high. And as such, governance rights are going to be at maximum value. Yeah, so that's basically the main thesis that I'm doing. So what do we want to do with that? Yeah, so this what I presented is kind of the result of some research, which goal is really to think about what is most valuable in context of DAOs, notably in context of Uniswap, because we think that the fee switch decision is a critical one, because we want that. I think everyone wants that DAOs and this DAO can evolve in the most useful version it can be. And so I'm positing that the most useful version is a monopolistic version. And so it needs to be treated as what we call a crypto utility, not as a startup, basically. So what I just said is I'm going to try and synthesize in a bit of a geeky way. What I just said is that welfare, so welfare is like the total utility, the aggregate utility of every stakeholder in Uniswap. It's better when it's a public good than when it's a club good. So it means the less excludable it is, the better it is for everyone, because less people are priced out, liquidity, there is more liquidity available, and thus it's more useful for everyone. So that's one of the takeaways. Another point, taking a step back there, is that VCs are not finding the solution themselves. So we say they are stuck in an inadequate equilibrium because they are stuck in a game for now where their view of a token is very much tied to the traditional equity instrument. Whereas we think we posit that there is value for governance rights when the fee switch is destroyed for Uniswap, and when it reaches monopoly. So we think we need to look into how to get them there. They won't do it themselves. Okay, this one is a bit more geeky. Yeah, it's just what I just said. It's like the value of governance rights is going to reach a maximum when at monopoly. Yeah, so that's the takeaways of our research. I'd be happy to talk with any one of you who have some ideas on that. Sure, if I can.
I won't argue that, of course, Uniswap will be difficult to continue if it doesn't have any more funding. What I don't understand is your equation of Uniswap as a public good. So public good is classified as goods that are non-excludable and non-rival. Examples of public goods are education, what else? Health. And in your previous slides, you had equated Uniswap with the fact that it wants to instigate fees as then becoming a non-public good, I think a club good, right? So these two examples that I said, education and healthcare, they obviously have prices. Just the fact is because they have prices, because there's a price barrier, it might be expensive to some, doesn't mean that it's then excludable. So what is the other question? Yes, so Uniswap is a smart contract. As a smart contract, it's open to the whole public. It can't exclude anybody by nature. And it's non-rival because we could do a show of hands here, but the number of people that have used Uniswap, and then perhaps the number of people that have used SushiSwap or whatever afterwards, it'll probably be the same, So there is also non-rival. So I don't agree the fact that you're using Uniswap as a public, as classifying it as a club good, even with the fee system instigated. The rest of it is interesting. It does need to go on. Perhaps the DAO needs to be discussed about, but I don't understand the classification.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So To me, so as a non-economist, to me, the like public goods is a very precise definition. So I would say that if education is so, a public good to me is air, right? So I'm not sure actually you would get health in public goods strictly, but I think it's still it's okay.
It's one of the ones used as one of the typical.
Okay,
public goods.
but
It can have a price.
yeah, but I think that's still the yeah, but the point still holds, which is actually I could have removed this slide and not talk about public goods,
Yes.
because I mean really the point is that whenever you have a fee, you reduce you price out more people, right? So so you just reduce the number of transactions. You know, okay, so liquidity is is going to reduce as well because it's less interesting to get it there. So that's really the point. It's like the aggregate utility is going to be it's not going to be maximal whenever there is a fee. And thinking the other way, if you remove the fee, then it sounds pretty clear that you would have more people in, and so it's more useful for everyone because it's this type of. So I think it's.
Then that's basic economics instead of more public goods kind of.
Yeah. Sorry for if it's imprecise. I was thinking it was fair enough to state it this way, but I think this is more important actually in case of Uniswap.
Thank you.
Sure.
What do you see as a purpose of DAO, so generally?
Yeah, so the question is, what is the purpose of DAOs? So the approach we are taking for this question is to say that they are maximally relevant, if that makes any sense, in concave decision settings. So when you
Is there a chance to explain it without concave?
so that's really when you need to reach a middle point. So it's the difference between deciding whether, like for example, the contrary is maybe a startup where you want to like I was saying pivot, which is like completely the opposite. So that's one autocratic decision to go in that sense. The other way, the middle point is what are going the parameters? For example, like do you want to add this pair to Uniswap? No, that doesn't work with Uniswap. That works with Aave actually. So do you want to change these parameters to Uniswap? A change of parameters is going to be maximally useful when everybody is mostly agrees with it, not when just one group of people agrees with it and not the rest. So that's simply like politics usually. Like politics is two parties because you can regroup a maximum of persons. So usually when you have two parties, okay, I'm thinking a bit about France now when I say two parties, but it could be another country, I guess, or the US is ending up the same. You have like more than half of the population who is happy at the end normally because they have voted for one of the two, and so it's garnering more than 50%. So the election system in such countries is always guaranteeing that more than 50% are happy with the choice at the end, right? Which is getting more and more false those days. But my point is that this is a decision system where you are trying to get the most people base, so user base, happy at the same time.
Thanks a lot, Alex. It was super interesting. Also, I also still have many questions, but I spare them for later.